Testing. Check, check. Test. Test.
Yeah. Miriam wanted me to pass one of the microphones around during
Testing.
This one works? Yep. Do I have to do anything? No, should be good. Okay.
Testing. Check. Test. Testing. Testing 1, 2. Check. Test. Testing 1. Test 2. Test 3, 4. Testing 1, 2. Check.
Waiting for somebody. Thank you.
How you doing?
Check. Check. Test 2. Hello.
Yes. It's
You hold
working?
on to that.
Okay,
So when
that's
you're
good.
ready, just-
Okay, I'm gonna wait a minute. Her masks off.
More chance of hearing us.
Yeah, everybody clap. They took their masks off.
Now, if I can figure, is this working? Yeah, it sounds like, okay, good.
Do we have to do it? Okay.
Yeah, the usual tap didn't do anything, but Jack's is probably good, right?
Let's see, is this working? Wonderful. That's always a problem. So I want to welcome everybody to Community Currents. I'm Marion Shane, the originator. And the purpose is to connect us with the community outside of the terraces. Today, we were honored to have Mayor Rob Rennie and also our Vice Mayor, Marie Risto. We have the town manager in attendance also, and stand up so they can see who you are. Laura Prevetti. Future programs include Tuesday, June 28th, a forum on mental health organized by Cindy McClement, our spiritual care director, and also our very active Sharon Roth. Tuesday, August 23rd, County Supervisor Joe Submitian will be speaking. We have changed from being District 1 to District 5, so that there are a lot of differences, and we really need to find out what goes on at the county level. We had our forensic speaker that came that people like so well, and he came from the county, but there are many others as well that are highly capable. Tuesday, October 25th, Fran Rushing, a noted art historian, will be our speaker. Today's program, though, is about the town of Los Gatos. The elephant in the room for the town council is the demand, and the word is demand, from the state of California for Los Gatos to have nearly 2,000 new units built in 8 years. I have asked the council to only touch on this because there is so much more that the council does. After this presentation, you're welcome to ask questions about this subject or any other that you would like to ask about the town. Our town council members are all high achievers in many fields, and they have decided to dedicate their talents to better the town of Los Gatos. Mayor Rob Rennie is a resident since 1997. He has degrees in engineering, chemistry, and math. He spent 25 years in the semiconductor industry, with 5 years developing products to improve solar energy technology. In retirement, he's become a small business owner. He served on many boards, including global warming, transit, safety, including emergency preparedness, air quality, open spaces, and does much in the way of supporting community needs. He's a leader in many organizations, including CERT, and also a ham radio operator. I think he could easily belong to the terraces when he decides to retire.
Sounds good.
And I'm not naming half of the things that Marie has done or that Rob has done. She was an active volunteer in co-op preschool and high school, acted as a coach in youth soccer and volleyball, among many other volunteer activities. Marie was appointed to the Housing Element Advisory Board. She served on the Transportation and Parking Committee and the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Board. Also, the New Complete Streets and Transportation Commission. She is an avid hiker and bicyclist. At this point, I'm going to change the meeting over to our mayor and vice mayor, and you may proceed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting us. We're happy to be here. You gave lots of intros, so we, now you understand a little bit about us. First of all, I would say we work as a team on the town council and with our staff, and so we made it a team effort today. Maria and I are going to tag team on different questions, take turns, and we brought our town manager with us, who's all-knowing. So if we can't answer something, we've got the expert with us. We wanted to start off a little bit just understanding a little bit about you. Maria and I were curious, how many people here have lived in Los Gatos all their life? Wow. How many people have lived near or around in the area all their life? Oh, a lot of your life, yeah.
Did anybody move here? That's true. Or most of you are like, we're just trying to figure out how many people are locals, and I think the terraces probably draws people from across the country and maybe even outside of the country. Is there anybody that lives here that was born in another country and came to Los Gatos? Okay, so I mean, similarly to some of you, both Mayor Rennie and I grew up elsewhere. In 1987, my husband and I used to be an engineer. We moved to Los Gatos to work in Silicon Valley. And that was in 1987. And I only intended to stay here for about 5 years because I loved Chicago. I loved my family. I had siblings, I had cousins. But you know what? Los Gatos is a really hard place to leave. And so once I got here and made this my home, I decided after I stopped working in the semiconductor field that I was going to dedicate all of my time to the town. So we have similar backgrounds and similar passions about the town. And with our 3 other fellow council members, we work to help make the decisions to move the town forward. So from a municipal government point of view, essentially the town council is like a board of directors, and our town manager is the CEO, and she has the entire team of staff that run the town on a day-to-day basis.
Can we stop for a minute? Can everybody hear her?
No, you better speak up. You need to put it closer to your mouth.
Okay, is that better? Okay, I should remember, Carl Guardino does this. He touches it to his chin. Okay, thank you. All right. Okay, we started out with a list that Marion gave us. There's a lot of questions about the town, and then we can answer some other questions at the end. But the first thing was just the size of Los Gatos. Our population is about 33,000 people. And for comparison, that's about the same size as Saratoga, Menlo Park, and Los Altos, if you're familiar with those communities. So not huge, way smaller than San Jose and San Francisco, but just kind of a nice sized town.
Okay, so the next question that we got that we're asked to answer is about our budget. So it's give a brief summary about the most important areas of the budget was the question. So the budget is the financial plan for the town. It reflects our values of public safety, quality infrastructure, quality of life, civic enrichment, fiscal responsibility, and community character. So we try to balance all those things in our budget. As you know, budgets are not unlimited, so we have to make choices, and we really try to push our values first into how we allocate our budget. The draft budget for the coming year, which is our 22-23/23 budget, was released this month, and we're going to have a budget hearing at council on May 17th. You're all welcome to tune into that. We consider Los Gatos a full service jurisdiction, so our budget is really focused on providing the services to the town, and of course we have to make choices, but what are the most important services to provide to the town? Our operating budget is $45.9 million. We have $6.9 million in capital improvement that we plan to spend in the next year's budget. Our budget is primarily salaries. As I said, it's about service, so paying people to provide the service in the town, and that includes things like police, which is the largest portion of our budget for patrol, protection, school resource, traffic safety. Then we have library for books, speakers, education programs. Parks and Public Works is an important area, keeping up the roads, the sidewalks, our parks, our street lights, trimming trees, and so forth. And then planning and our building department, which is permits and for new projects and remodels and so forth. And then, of course, we support other related agencies such as NUMU, the museum, the rec center, nutritional groups like Live Oak Nutrition, West Valley Community Services, and all the different services they provide, Cassie, destination marketing through the chamber, or some of the support where we've given grants out in the community. You want to take the next?
Sure. So my understanding from Marion is this is an environmentally conscious group here. And so we got some questions about the environment and recycling. So the town has always been aggressive about recycling. We have been adding recycling bins in public areas, at the parks, at community gathering areas, and downtown to help facilitate recycling. Because not only should people be recycling at home, but when they're coming out of restaurants or walking around or finishing a picnic, we want to make sure that those receptacles are available. West Valley Sanitation is our agency that collects and processes recyclables. And just starting this year, we no longer put food scraps in the garbage. And there's probably a collection program here, but all food scraps get mixed in with yard waste, and that gets sorted out. The methane is collected. So we're kind of working to keep greenhouse gases from being excessively produced at landfill. There's a mulch program where the town has to use a good amount of mulch from the yard waste that's chopped up, and it's available to residents. So this is a great way to conserve water. We can mulch our gardens, mulch our plants, and keep that water close by. We have a town website that has all kinds of information about water use reduction, rebates for lawn replacement, gray water. Gray water is when people in homes can take the water coming out of their washing machine, and instead of sending it down into the sewer, use it to water their landscaping. And water catchment systems. One of my neighbors just put in a system where all the rain, when it rains, that lands on his roof and goes into the gutters, instead of going down the driveway, is all going to be caught and retained and used for sprinkling. So there's a big program to try to make sure that we're using every precious drop of water that we can collect.
Okay, so the next part of that question was about climate change. Is the town doing anything about climate change? And actually, this is an area that I go way back. In 2007, I organized a team of residents in Los Gatos to lobby the town council to sign on to the mayor's climate protection agreement, which back then was the mayor of Seattle, and I think he was the leader of it, and a couple others. We're trying to get cities from all across the country to sign on to the idea that climate change was, an emergency and an issue, and please sign up. And so my team successfully talked the Los Gatos Council into signing on to the mayor's climate protection agreement. We did a greenhouse gas inventory, which tells you where is all of our where is all our participation in creating the climate change coming from, and then what is our plan for over the years. So starting certainly and probably before, but certainly in 2007, the town made a formal acknowledgement that climate change was important and we were going to do something about it. Coming forward a little bit, one of the big things the town did was in about 2015, we signed on to the forming of Silicon Valley Clean Energy Authority. And so I was the town representative when we as a council voted to join in on forming this. So I was a founding board member, and I was chair of that board when we first started delivering electricity. And the purpose of Silicon Valley Clean Energy was so we could buy the electricity that goes on the lines that PG&E delivers. So we could buy greener electricity with no carbon content, as we like to say, compared to what PG&E was buying. So we have so we've been delivering for 5 years now. It took we started in 2015, but you have to get your organization going. I helped hire the first CEO and then a second CEO and so forth. But we've been delivering power for 5 years now that's 100% carbon free. And in that time, we always try to be a little bit cheaper than what PG&E would charge you for the power portion of your label. So over that time in our area is about half of the county. We don't include San Jose because they did their own, and they're actually not 100% carbon free, by the way. But most of the rest of the cities are part of our service area. And in our service area, we've saved our customers $77 million in the last 5 years, and we've avoided 575 million pounds of greenhouse gases compared to if you had been getting PG&E delivering. And this was an opt-out program. So unless you said, no, I want to keep PG&E, you were switched over to us buying the energy for you. So we have 96.5% of everybody that lives in our service area and the businesses do buy from us and getting that carbon-free electricity. Other things the town has done along these lines is we did a styrofoam ban several years back. We did a plastic bag ban several years back. We did a ban on gas powered leaf blowers, both reduce the amount of noise they cause and the reduction in greenhouse gases. We just recently enacted a foodware ordinance to reduce the waste from the takeout foodware that you get at restaurants. So they'll now have to provide something that's compostable or if you're there, a silverware kind of utensil or something of that sort. The town has also invested quite a bit in electric vehicle charging stations, bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure. Our goal is to get more people doing active transport and out of their cars. It's healthier for them to get a little exercise. It reduces the pollution in our environment. And so that's been a focus of that. I think Maria might talk about that a little bit in a few as we go forward. We've done LED street and traffic lights, street lights and traffic lights to reduce the amount of energy there. We've done lots of other water conservation measures. I think that might be a topic in our next page too. And another thing that's important for climate change is retaining the trees, because they sequester the carbon that's emitted from other sources. So Los Gatos has been a tree city for 46 years, I think, or something. So we put in, occasionally we have to take trees down, but we always plant new ones, and there is a cycle. So maybe we replace older trees with younger trees, so we keep the cycle going. And that's an important part of our fighting climate change. And native plants, we encourage a lot of native plants because they use less water, and actually water is a source of greenhouse gases. If we use too much water, we have to pump it from far away places, which adds to the greenhouse gases. And our new general plan that's coming up has a lot of new policies and goals around climate action. Also, that's currently at the Planning Commission being reviewed, and will come to the council with their suggestions on what kinds of things we should be put in our new 2040 general plan. And the next part looks like it's mine too, I guess. So I'll continue. The next question was, how are we protecting ourselves from possible fires? And this is a favorite of mine. As mentioned, I was emergency preparedness is something that's important to me. I was a CERT, community emergency response team member, ham radio operator, and when I was mayor last time in 2018, that was one of the focuses that I made, and we started putting a lot more support for our CERT teams. Actually, I think we have a CERT team here and a ham radio operator here at the terraces. So one of the things we did last year was we formed a citizens committee to give us lots of ideas on what can we do in Los Gatos to help make sure that what are the best things to do to help fire prevention, or in case of a fire, be ready to take care of it. And we've in addition are collaborating with County Fire on helping with residents' education and preparedness. And we're doing other efforts such as strict defensible space ordinances, particularly in our WUI areas. We're doing things called shaded fuel breaks, where you leave the tree, but you get rid of the brush underneath, which really helps get the fire getting hot. And by leaving the trees, it doesn't encourage the brush to grow. So the idea of a shaded fire break is really good, because we don't have to go back and clear the brush underneath as early as we might have to. And then we've done other vegetation management kinds of things, particularly in some of our roads that are single egress out of our mountain areas, where if a fire were to occur, we don't want people having to drive through a burning tunnel. So we've done a lot of our roadway vegetation management to help on that, and open space vegetation management also. And we've done evacuation drills. Recently, we just did College Hill from College Avenue and that area. And we did one, I guess it was probably last year, on the Foster Road area. So that these have been important to, we get a lot of learnings. If we ever have to evacuate somebody, we've learned from this, and we get the residents used to what are their ways out. And we do a lot of evacuation planning. What if you can't get out on the road? Is there a way to walk out? Is there a way to go through your neighbor's property somehow out of the mountains? So we've done a lot of that. And if I didn't mention it, defensible space kinds of requirements also around the homes. So I'll give it to your turn.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we could both talk about all of these topics for a long time. One of the questions that we were asked was, how has our educational background helped our decisions? And I had a lot of experiences in the past. I also have a degree in chemistry. And if anyone studied chemistry, one of my professors said, whether you become a chemist or not, which I did, chemistry teaches you how to think, how to solve problems. And I feel like throughout my career, while it was in tech, you've got a list of constraints. You can't do anything you want. There's specific constraints on a semiconductor, how fast an electron can move or how small of a metal wire you can use, but you still are trying to get the best results. And I feel like I can use that kind of thought process to consider what's the best type of housing to create. And we'll get into that more, but if we have to plan for 2,000 housing units, what's the best way to do it? Where do we put it? How do we look at new problems and solve them with the tools that we've got at hand? And how do I take new information and update my thinking, update my decision-making skills? And so I actually enjoy this new challenge of dealing with transportation, housing, the environment, as compared to being an engineer. I think all of those things end up tying together. The one area where my education didn't necessarily prepare me, or my natural inclination, is when I'm involved with the financial side of the town, reading those spreadsheets is still something that I find very difficult, very intensive. So that's where I have to work the hardest and where I felt the least prepared. And so I have to do the most work on.
And I'm also engineer scientist too. So same kinds of answers. But one thing that's interesting is you end up with usually a variety of council members with different skills. And it's good to have, you wouldn't want all engineers on the council. Before Maria came, I was really the only science person on the council. So I kind of would take the lead sometimes on things that were a little more technical related. And we had a lawyer or two on the council. So things that were more contract related, we usually would leave that to them. And we had somebody who was from real estate. So they usually would speak up and take a lead on that. In the past, we had a marketing communications person. So their focus often was on making sure the council and the town could communicate well. So it's, in any way, having these different skills in your council members really helps us to be more of a full team. And of course, we rely on staff, but it's good to have your top decision makers having different skills that complement each other.
Okay, so I'll just take a piece of the elephant in the room and then you can ask more questions about it. But the question from Marion was, how best are you going to meet California's demands on housing? And, I want to preface this with the fact that in Silicon Valley, the whole region, Los Gatos is part of the entire region, we've done a really great job of creating jobs. Lots of companies expand, lots of companies come here, lots of new jobs are created. But most communities have not wanted to change. And so not very much housing got built. And there's two consequences to that. One is that where new housing got built, it was further away. Morgan Hill, Gilroy. There's a lot of workers in Silicon Valley who even come from Fresno. So we've pushed people out and created very long commutes. The other thing is that housing prices are just absolutely unattainable to young people. It's great for those of us who owned houses for a long time, staying in one place. My husband and I are sitting on a pot of gold, but it's at the expense of the fact that my children will never live near here, that the people who work downtown have very long commutes. Probably the people who work here at the terraces come from far away, and anybody doing construction, even our teachers, most of our teachers have to come from a long way. So the state of California decided that there needs to be a catch up in the housing. And there's going to be growing pains with that because we've put it off for so long. But every town, city, and county is given, it's called a regional housing needs allocation. And there's a group that assigns every municipality and every county a number of housing units that we are required to plan for in an 8-year cycle. So for the cycle starting in 2023, Los Gatos has to plan for about 2,000 new housing units. Now you look at Los Gatos and say, there's very little open space. There's a little bit of space on the rest of the North 40, but I don't see vast fields. I don't see big open areas. The answer is we're going to do it with infill. There's some advantages to that. We already have roads and electric power and water in the town. And so we can add housing with density. We can look at multifamily housing. We can look at mixed use, like perhaps along Los Gatos Boulevard. There can be retail, shops, restaurants on the first floor, and then maybe a floor or two of housing above that. And the advantage to planning that way is these will be smaller units, potentially more affordable than a single family home with a yard. And it will be where we already have services, so people will be more likely to walk or bike. If you can step out the door, I don't know the number, but I know there's a lot of people from the terraces that walk to Lunardi's or walk to CVS or walk to the 2 new restaurants you've got now. And, you know, wouldn't it be great if throughout the town where we plan more housing, that we make sure it's near where people can walk to the services they want? And so I sit on the Housing Element Advisory Board, and we are grappling with this very large number and trying to figure out the best way to plan it. Now, the town does not build. We only plan. And so we'll set up locations and conditions and hope that, you know, developers will come in. In addition to building that housing, we need to make sure that it includes affordable housing. And by affordable, that means a program where people have to demonstrate that their income level is below a certain amount, and then they would qualify for housing of that type. I think Rob will talk more about that. But so to go back to the housing, the ways that we would look at it is with density, with greater height. Maybe we can't do it if everything's only 2 stories. So in the right places, maybe in nodes near shopping centers, we would have to go to 3 stories or maybe 4. We don't know yet. And then make sure that we improve the sidewalks and the bike lanes. If we want people to be able to have nearby services and get there, either with a wheelchair or pushing a stroller or walking or on a bicycle, we need to make sure that it doesn't feel uncomfortable or dangerous, that it feels like something you'd like to be able to do. And then the next question I've got is, a number of residents have asked about the North 40. So I don't know if any of you have gone by there. It's under construction, but right now, phase 1, which was the first half of it, it was about 44 acres, and the first 20 acres are under development. It's primarily residential, and then it's got some retail. It'll have a mix of restaurants and little shops there that will primarily serve the people that live there, but also will be an attractive place for people to come and visit. And then there are 50 low-income senior units that are being constructed. So these will be apartments. They'll be at the highest level of affordability. So they're for residents who make under 50% of what the average, what the median income is in Silicon Valley. And that will be small units. I think they're 500 square feet above the market hall and for 2 people only. And senior citizen age restriction. Right now, the rest of the North 40 has not yet got an application, but the developers' representatives have been speaking to the town, speaking to groups within the town about what are the options. Should it be a lot more housing? Should it be housing and office? What should it be? And they've been going around meeting. I don't know if they've been to the terraces to present their options or, well, if it's something you're interested in, they would probably come and show what choices they're looking at. But so that'll be something coming forward that could help with some of the housing planning we need to do. So we'll have to see how that unfolds. And that's about all I can say about housing right now. I'll be happy to answer questions at the end.
Okay, so we had, is there a way to help low-income people obtain housing? And the biggest challenge is we don't have very much low-income housing. As Maria mentioned, with the 49, it's I think a manager unit, and 49 very low-income and age-restricted also units. That's probably tripling or quadrupling the number of affordable housing that we have in town. But we do have an active below-market price housing program for both renters and buyers. But the renters, and as Maria's kind of been explaining, have to demonstrate that they meet the income thresholds and other requirements to be considered for the town's program. This is a very, very competitive program, and it's typically results in a lottery in order to do that. So, you know, part of Maria's talking about the 2,000 units, about half of those are supposed to be below market units at different levels. If they got built, that would help the, you know, our issue of having low income units for people. Next, there was a question about, it says real estate changed hands recently on Los Gatos Boulevard. I think that's actually changed in a couple places. It changed with the where the Knob Hill is and the Los Gatos Cafe. I think that little mall area changed. Part of our, I don't think you quite touched on it. Part of our general plan thought or framework was to put a lot of it, of this dense housing, as Maria called infill, is put it in these areas, but with the, you know, like they probably have to rebuild the building, but the idea is with the commercial that is there, but add housing above it, again, with this idea that if people could walk to, you know, for a lot to the grocery or you know, to the coffee shop or to other things, or if it was somewhat close to the schools and the kids could walk to the schools, that would reduce the effect on infrastructure. And so we've been discussing this, and whoever bought, was it Sand Hill Property that bought that? So whoever bought that mall may be thinking along those lines. We just don't know. Of course, you have where the empty dealership was. That was just bought by, that one was Sand Hill. I'm on the wrong page here. But and there were some other questions. Yeah. So you know, I guess the Lenardi's was recently remodeled and expanded. So we're not thinking that anybody, I mean, the town doesn't tell people what to do. That developer has, or the owner has to get the desire. But if they've just invested in areas, we think it's probably unlikely that they're going to make big changes, or they're going to tear it down and start over. Maybe they would add something. But so Lenardi's was recently remodeled and expanded, and where the Whole Foods is, that Cornerstone market, it's called there, has also been recently remodeled. So we think it's unlikely anybody's going to do anything there soon. And those are both areas that are, you know, easily walkable from here. So we do have an application for a market at the former auto dealership that's on Los Gatos Boulevard and Los Gatos Almaden, which is actually just across from that mall that was bought, where the Knob Hill is. So maybe both of you might see changes on both sides of that street. We'd have to see. And then there was a question about medical buildings. What about medical building near Trader Joe's? that's a newly built building. Again, I don't think that's going to change or go away. Is it that Palo Alto Medical? Yeah, so that was just built a couple of years ago. Well, maybe it's getting to be 3 or 4. Time goes by fast with COVID, but I think it's very unlikely that anything would change there. And then I think there's sort of a question about whether we would have more medical along Los Gatos Boulevard. And my thought is, we want to balance how much medical we allow in. It does well because not far from the hospital. We want people to be able to have access to medical, but it's also probably the highest generator of traffic is to have medical buildings. So we don't want to overwhelm ourselves with traffic. So we are always looking to balance bringing good services and businesses to town with what other effects they're going to have, like traffic. I think I covered everything, so I'll let you go to yours next.
Okay, and I wanted to say one other thing about grocery stores, because that did seem to be a concern. I think what's fascinating is if you compare Los Gatos and Saratoga, we have pretty much the same population, a little over 30,000 people. Saratoga has 1 grocery store in the entire boundary. Los Gatos has 7. Grocery stores do very well in our town, and people like to shop locally. And I just think that will always be a strong business here. We all have to eat, we like to cook, and even our employees who work here then will sometimes shop on their way home. And so our grocery stores are well supported. The question I've got going along there is, how do we help businesses? So, the council creates policies that make things possible. One of the biggest changes that was made before I got on the council was what I'd say decoupling parking spaces from restaurant seats. So it used to be if there was a restaurant, depending on how big it was, there had to be a certain number of parking spaces. There was an assumption that everybody would drive to a restaurant and need a place to park. And that policy was changed a couple of years ago. And a very concrete example that some of you have benefited from is Cornerstone Shopping Center, where Whole Foods was able to open 2 restaurants there. And I talked to the owner of that shopping center, and he said if they were restricted by parking spaces, they never would have been able to do that. And they have not seen a problem because nearby residents know that there's no point in driving 3 or 4 blocks because the parking lot might be full of people shopping. And so they're walking. And it's been a benefit because north of Blossom Hill Road, there really was only 1 or 2 sit-down restaurants. And I feel like everybody who lives on this side of town also deserves to have, downtown is a great place, but we also want people to have nice dining options up here. And so there's policy changes the council can make that help make things more vital. We have a position in the town, a staff member called the Economic Vitality Manager. And she, oh, we can all think about baseball. She helps new businesses that want to come to town find locations in Los Gatos and go through the permitting process and open. So kind of guiding them and helping them navigate all of the necessary paperwork. Our town invested in the downtown parklets to help businesses weather the pandemic. So if you've been downtown, we've replaced some street parking with outdoor dining. And actually, I've gotten questions from other communities asking about it. And Los Gatos actually started that program before the pandemic. There were some what we call parklets where we replaced some parking spaces, put in outdoor dining. We have great weather. Everybody wants to be outside. When the pandemic came, nobody wanted to be inside. And so the council actually authorized the money to put in what's called K-rail, that freeway divider, concrete wall stuff around so that every business, every restaurant could offer outdoor dining during the pandemic. We also have ARPA money, Remind me what ARPA stands for? American Recovery. American Rescue Plan Act. And so that is money that was given that we could use to help fund things, to help the town through the pandemic. And the council, besides giving grants to groups that were providing community services or feeding them, also used that money to help businesses build parklets. So now we're starting to take out all that temporary K-rail, but we are giving each business that wants to build a parklet $40,000 or 75% of the cost of building those outdoor dining spaces. And, you know, it's something that coming from Chicago, I did not understand why we weren't eating outside most of the year. And now we're getting there. So, you know, taking advantage of our beautiful climate, helping our restaurants. And when I talk to people that own retail shops downtown, their comment is, if the restaurants are doing well, I'm doing well, because it brings people down. And once you're eating, then you'll stop and shop. And then we've also given money to the Chamber of Commerce. They have a visitor center so people can stop in and get information. They're right downtown. And they also are doing our destination marketing to get the word out to people that maybe haven't visited Los Gatos. This is a great place to come for a weekend or a day or a week and help boost our hotels and just kind of expose Los Gatos to more visitors. All right. Oh, and then I get the parking one. Okay, the other question is, are there attempts to deal with parking downtown? There definitely are. So before I was elected to the council a year and a half ago, I've probably dedicated the last 10 years of my life to working on bicycle and pedestrian access and solving parking issues. And as part of the Parking and Transportation Commission, I was downtown physically doing parking counts, looking at 10 o'clock in the morning, noon, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Where are the cars? Where are the openings? Are there any openings? Are all the places taken? Because if you talk to people, they'll say there's nowhere to park. There's 3 issues that we're trying to solve. One is we're promoting now an employee parking permit program, because our employees who work downtown would often come and park. And sometimes they would take the spaces that are most important for our visitors to come. And so when we were looking at how the parking lays out downtown, what we realized is we really don't have a capacity issue. There's enough paved space for cars. It's an allocation issue. Most people want to park toward the south part. Some of our employees, for the right or wrong reasons, were parking in the time-limited spaces. And all of a sudden, when 3 hours were up, we're running out to move their car again. And so this employee permit parking program is setting aside close to 500 parking spaces and getting our employees to park in those spaces. They may have to walk 2 blocks, I think fewer than 3. We've got it allocated so nobody has to walk very far, but it's a park once solution. They know if they park a little bit away from the shop where they're working, they don't have to move their car for the rest of the day. So that gives them the relief. It stops that switch around. And then it frees up the 30-minute parking on Santa Cruz Avenue and the 3-hour parking in the lots. The next thing we're rolling out is better signage. I've met people that have come downtown all flustered and said they couldn't find a place to park. And because we've done such a good job at hiding our parking lots behind the buildings, on Santa Cruz Avenue and University, because frankly, who wants to stare at a parking lot, right? So we have a great job of hidden parking lots. But if you're new to Los Gatos, you don't know where they are. And so we had a consultant come in, and we do have some signage, but it turns out it wasn't necessarily in the best place to help direct people. It wasn't eye-catching. The signs weren't big enough. So we're creating new signage to help people when they're coming to town get into those parking lots as quickly and as easily and conveniently as possible. And then there was a third thing, signs. Oh, and then in the lots where we've got 3-hour spaces, we are now looking at, the council is going to be passing, I think, or has in front of us, we've considered an ordinance to charge for parking. So what we're planning right now is probably, and this will come before us, I don't know what the answer will be, but it'll probably be the first 3 hours are free, and then you pay like maybe $2 an hour after that. And what that'll do is encourage people that are going to be here all day to go to those further out all day spaces. People who are here to do one quick errand might park on Santa Cruz Avenue for the 30-minute spots, and those spaces will turn over. So if you have to run into the Apple store, if you have to pick up just one thing, a 30-minute space is perfect. And then if you're going to be here for about 3 hours or longer, you go back into the parking lots. So we're just trying to sort it all out. And I'm really excited because this has been years in the making, and we'll see how this rolls out. And it's just phases. We have other ideas as this works, what else can be done. I mean, think about how banks have huge parking lots that are no longer, people don't bank as much as they used to in person. So at some point, maybe there can be some public-private or private-private agreements where a business could maybe rent spaces from the bank or something. So we're just looking at, we already have a lot of pavement for cars, and we just need to figure out how to get them there. A parking garage is the very last thing we would look at. So that's a great question because people bring it up all the time. And I would say probably 10 years ago, I thought we needed a parking garage. But when you look at the fact that with our parking studies, we can already see that we have enough parking spaces. And if we just try spreading people out, see if it works, that costs very little. A parking garage could cost something like $15 million. On top of that, say we won the lottery and we had all the money we wanted and we're going to build a parking garage. If we decided to build it somewhere, we would blow up all the parking that already exists where it's going. So, if we had a big lot that had 100 parking spaces and we wanted to build a garage, we'd have to go without those 100 spaces for the whole time we did the construction. But I think the main reason not to do it right now is because we had a consultant come in. She assured us it's very unlikely we need one. And frankly, it would cost money we don't have. A parking garage ends up costing anywhere, depends on whether you dig down and go up. It can cost anywhere from $40,000 to $80,000 per parking space. So there's nothing we could ever charge that would get that back. And we feel like there's better uses for our money, and there's not a demonstrated need yet. But that's a great question because it comes up all the time, and we now have the data to show we don't need it.
And as you mentioned, we're hoping to free up spaces closer to the businesses with the employee parking program. We're trying a few things to get them further away, so there's more opening close to the businesses. For example, we're going to give out some parking permits for them to park in the neighborhood parking, just a little bit so it doesn't fill it all up. But you'll notice, like the Almond Grove where I live, you can't park there. And so I think it's maybe a 2-hour time limit or something like that. So again, it's not, if you're going to have to move your car every 2 years, 2 years, that'd be great. Every 2 hours, you might as well just park next to the business. But if we give them a permit that lets them use some of that parking through there, we're hoping to move them a little bit away from the businesses and free it up for the customers. Should we just go for questions now?
We actually have a program where I believe the North 40 we're going to have developments that will start paying into a shuttle. And so that is a concept that our Parks and Public Works, I think, is working on that and looking at when a project comes in, can it pay toward a shuttle? I think that would be really attractive for helping people get around town without their own automobile, and it works in other communities. So that's something that's under consideration and would be part of an effort to decrease the traffic downtown.
And to add to that, we approved a redo of the office building across from the lodge there. Where the Best Western is, there's now a big hole basically because they haven't gone forward. But as part of that approval, they promised to do a shuttle that was going to run around town. And then, as you mentioned, the North 40 developers, as part of their traffic mitigation plan, are paying something into a fund. So we'd like to do a shuttle. The challenge is paying for it, along with all the other things that we have to pay for. But any big projects going forward, that's now something we're trying to get developers to pay into. Go ahead.
Actually, those hidden part, so the question was what the hidden. No, that's a great idea. And one of the things that we're looking at is, for example, the post office, which is one level, could be lots of stories. The space between University and Santa Cruz Avenue, my understanding is that was the old railway. That was the train that came to and through Los Gatos. And that's the old railway right of way. And then when the train went away, that became the parking lots. But it's those kind of creative ideas of where does it make sense to add buildings? How could you keep the parking and do other things?
And we recently had a study session on the nuts and bolts of affordable housing. How can we get more affordable housing built? And the answer, construction is so expensive. Everything's so expensive. The answer was, well, the town needs to donate land so they don't have to pay for the land portion. And so I said, well, the only land we really have available are exactly those parking lots. And we don't want to lose the parking. So and if you add apartments, they're going to need some parking also. The challenge that came back was when you do that, you need something called podium style, where they build, underground and parking below, and then they build a podium, and then they build the houses on top of them. Versus non-podium style is a lot of what you see out in North 40, where there's still 3-story buildings, but they're kind of like a tall condo or townhouse or something like that. So the feedback we got from one of our developer that joined us on that panel was that podium style is expensive and challenging to get it to work through. So, I think we may want to still explore that idea, but we were given some challenges with it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have still more questions, but I think it's time to let our residents ask some questions also. So anyway, Jim is going to have a microphone and he'll be going around with it. And if you have a question, and I know Angelica does, then raise your hand.
Hold on a minute, Will.
Hi, I'm Angela Papanastos, and I've lived here since 1968. So not all my life, but many, many years. One of my concerns is what's happening with the Wood Road senior citizen facility that you're talking about building. Today, one person was diagnosed with COVID in our the people who work here, and the dining room is very short on help because of this. It could have been somebody there. That's what I'm thinking. 5 people short today. You build a large facility like that for more senior residents, you're going to have an issue with trying to get people to work. We have a shortage of help here since COVID. And I'm wondering, why did the Planning Commission vote against it? And yet the council ended up voting against it also, but 2 people voted for it. And I think you did not vote because you live near there.
Right, I wasn't allowed to.
Right.
I can answer a little bit of it on a top level because I live right under the meadows. So I have to say, I have a very fond spot for it. We've lived on Broadway since 1993. And my kids grew up getting to know the residents from the Meadows that would come down the hill. Going back up the hill was always a challenge. You know, it's a little different topography from the terraces, but that facility was built in the 50s and, you know, became dated and, you know, was deemed unsafe. I think between fire issues, they need a new fire ring road and some clearing, and the buildings were just so outdated. They were looking at a full rebuild. And so I think it was around 2007, they came to the residents of Broadway where I live and a couple nearby neighbors and said, we're considering rebuilding it. You know, they started showing us plans, getting feedback. And I would say that everybody on our street was very in support of it. You know, I love having that facility up there. I would take my kids up to the Meadows to bring cookies. We got to know a couple of the residents who walked on our street or would walk their dog, and we'd go visit them for tea. You know, it was a great integration into the neighborhood. So in the past couple years, you know, they then, I think in 2007, I might have the year wrong, but then the recession hit. And so then the decision to rebuild kind of stopped. And then it came back again about 2 years ago. And since then, for safety reasons, they completely shut the whole facility. Now we know that we have a huge need for senior housing. We have a need for every kind of housing, but I know what kind of waiting list is here at the terraces. And so, you know, we've got a whole population that would like senior facilities in Los Gatos. I was engaged a lot as a resident. The Planning Commission, as a sort of outsider's point of view, because you'll have to vote on this again if it comes back. I can say the Planning Commission rejected it because they were concerned about the height. As the Meadows is going to rebuild, they're trying to reduce their footprint and have more space between the buildings. And so they're going taller. And so there was concern about height. There was concern about a lack of affordable units. And even though senior living facilities are exempt by the state from having to build affordable housing, the terraces set a precedent, I think, by having some affordable units here. And so that came back. There may have been some other issues, but I think it was primarily that. The Planning Commission turned it down. The developer, for whatever reason, decided not to appeal, not to go back to the Planning Commission, which they probably should have. They went to the council, and because there were only 4 people to vote, the only way it could pass is with a 3-1 or 4-0 approval. A 2-2 split is not an approval. So now it's going back to the Planning Commission. The Meadows is implementing some changes, and they'll go back to the Planning Commission. So we'll see where it stands. Does that answer your question?
Let me re-ask that question, if I may. I'm really pleased that your kids had a good time up at the Meadows, but I think Angela's point was that places like this, we require a lot of pampering, very labor intensive, generally speaking, low income jobs. And you just described to us all the problems you had of finding housing for low income people, yet you're putting in more of a demand for it and have no solution. So that's our question, I guess. Did I express myself?
Okay.
Thank you.
That's a good question. I think from the point of view of the town, this is a business application. It was a fully operating senior facility all the way until maybe 2 years ago. And they're just asking to rebuild at the same intensity, I think. I think it's slightly fewer units. I don't know that it's under the town's jurisdiction to say you're going to need low-income workers, so we can't approve you. But it's a compelling case for why we really do have to plan for these 2,000 housing units. Saying we're not going to means that the teachers at Los Gatos High School are going to have to live further away, that the terraces and other places are going to constantly struggle for workers. So it's something that not just Los Gatos, but every community around us. Campbell has to build affordable housing. Saratoga has to build affordable housing. Monte Sereno has to build affordable housing. We're not going to get out of this housing hole without every single municipality in the county doing their part. So that's a good point. I just don't think that it is under the town council's purview to say, well, you're not going to be able to hire people, so we're not going to approve you. That's their problem to figure out, if they're proposing, I'm assuming if they're proposing to build it, they're intending to staff it. But yes, I understand.
Was that your question?
Low-cost housing seems to be an oxymoron. It's really hard to find low-cost housing today in this area. So it's all precious, but it's becoming almost impossible to think of the concept of low-cost.
And that was one of the big reasons, as Maria said, that the Planning Commission recommended denial, and then the developer adjusted based on that. They reduced the height in one area, in two areas of it, but at the same time, what they did is they removed the penthouse units that were going to be the expensive units. They got rid of some of the 3-bedroom units so that there would be, so they had basically adjusted the average cost downwards. And then they were suggesting that they would have 7 income below market income restricted units there. So that was part of what the Planning Commission was saying was, we're worried that you're not doing anything for low cost housing. And they came back with, here's what we can do to adjust in that direction.
My question has to do back to parking. And it relates to the problem on Highway 9 by 17. And that I understand that they were going to do underground parking and they hit water. Now, that could be a rumor, but the whole thing has stopped. So something happened. On the second part of that question, what's going to happen to Los Gatos Lodge? I heard it was sold. And if it's sold, the next rumor is they're going to build a Santana Row there. So can you talk about those two issues and their relation to parking and traffic?
They didn't hit water. No, thank you very much. So the Alberta Way development at near 17 and 9, that's going to be an office building, and they are now going through the building permit stage. So they were allowed to demolish the old office building, and they'll be building new offices. So they're still in the permitting process, and then we'll see development happening there.
They didn't hit water.
They did not hit water. If they did, they would have to pump it out and, find an. It is right by the creek. You're absolutely right. That's right.
What about Los Gatos Lodge?
Well, Los Gatos Lodge has been full of rumors as long as I can remember. So we've seen various proposals. One was for a senior living facility, but they went away and decided not to pursue it and not to apply for permits. So now we're just waiting to see what they'd like to do next. So we don't have any proposals right now for that site. I don't know that for a fact, because that's been another rumor that we've been hearing over the years. Yeah.
And oftentimes what happens when they're thinking of selling, you get these contracts where the buyer says, well, I'm not actually going to buy it until I can get something approved. So they may have had interested buyers, but they haven't, as
Okay,
the town manager said, some of it went away.
would shuttle bus service between ourselves and Campbell provide any relief?
I don't know if we have a bus service, the 27, that goes up to the light rail station. So residents could take the 27 bus to the light rail and into Campbell. We are not working with Campbell to try to create our own shuttle system. I think for the town, whatever shuttle we're talking about would be circulating through and to downtown and maybe connecting nodes. But we're not looking at that. Thank you.
On the lodge site, is that one of the sites that might be a housing element site?
Yes, we've been discussing that. So one possibility, and that's another thing, there's always rumors, like as Mayor Rennie pointed out, sometimes someone is considering purchasing the property and then they may shop around and say, how much housing could I put here? What could I do? And then nothing happens. So with our housing element that we're working on now, where we're looking at sites where we can plan for housing, that is a potential site that the Housing Element Advisory Board may select, that if it turns over, that could be a great place for housing. And one of the things that has been done is, what we're asking for is any development that happens there, make sure that there's some kind of access from Highway 9 through the back of it, because the very back of that property abuts Los Gatos High School. And it would be a great way to alleviate traffic congestion on Main Street if people can walk or bike or drive and drop off at the high school on the backside from there. It would cut down on the traffic. So one of the things we're trying to make sure is that if something happens at the lodge site, that we do the best we can with traffic solutions. At this point, I doubt it, because it was approved as an office building. It was approved years ago, and my understanding through the manager is that they're continuing. I think everything stalled during COVID, and now they're pulling their building permits and they're moving forward, and changing it or putting housing on it would require them to come back and get new approval. And there's no movement toward that. So I think they're just going to go ahead with what was approved.
And they went through a challenging process to get it approved. The neighbors on that street were worried about the size and the traffic, and we cut it from, I think they originally wanted about 96,000 square feet. We cut it to 66,000 square feet after a lot of rounds. So I can't imagine that they want to go through that again.
But one nice benefit when that becomes office is those employees will be customers for downtown businesses, right? We'll have lunch employees, et cetera. So, we do also need offices, but as we're grappling with the housing, we need to get our housing element done and start figuring out where we can put housing before anything else develops that would be a great place, but someone already planned something else, right?
To go back to a question about groundwater levels. My understanding is that the groundwater levels in Los Gatos just now are historically very, very low. So if we got back anything of normal rainfall, because I had a friend who had lived here and her family lived in Los Gatos for generations. She said that these new buildings on Los Gatos, which has now underground garages, will find in a normal wet period that they have a swimming pool instead of a garage.
Well, I can say that certainly as buildings are going forward and underground parking is done, there's all kinds of engineering work done to see where the water table is, what is the history, whether something can be built, or if it is and water's an issue, how to mitigate that issue. But I would offer that we have one underground parking garage, a municipal lot in the middle of downtown that is perfectly serviceable, and Safeway, maybe, gosh, has it been 15 years now? I keep thinking of it as new, but when Safeway rebuilt, they put in underground parking, and that's been fine. So I don't know if there's places where the water table is very close, if engineering deals with it or how they decide, but I would say that I can't imagine somebody putting millions of dollars into a building without going through all of the research and the engineering. And we have town permits that force everyone to look at all those issues. So it may be a valid concern, but I know that it is being addressed. Thank you.
Let me just say one thing while we're waiting for the next question. We are recruiting for our commissions here in Los Gatos. So if anybody would like to get more involved in the town, we would love to have you apply. We have openings in our Community Health and Senior Services Commission. We have an opening on our Finance Commission. You have to have a degree in finance and some work background in that area. We have Building Board of Appeals opening, Historic Preservation Committee, Parks Committee, and Personnel Board are all boards that we're recruiting for right now.
Yes, I wanted to ask about the beach traffic that we're going to be facing during the summer. I tried to drive downtown a couple of weeks ago when we had that hot day, and I just turned around and changed my mind.
That can be a challenge. As a transportation commissioner, I've grappled with this. You know, the short, unpleasant answer is we can't solve it, but we can try to mitigate it. So a couple of things. One is a lot of times, if there's a crash on Highway 17, there's almost nothing we can do. If there's a crash and traffic backs up, there's no place for people to go. I feel like the people stuck in traffic are more miserable than we are. But in terms of as the freeway starts clogging up and cars start getting diverted into town, thinking it's a shorter route, there's a couple of things we can do. One is the town agreed, it used to be in our general plan that Highway 17 going through town could not be more than 2 lanes wide. And the town has agreed that there's kind of an extra lane that ends just after Lark Avenue as you're heading south. And then if you've ever gotten on and off at 17 and Highway 9, you know what a hair-raising experience that is, because it's a really short ramp and no space to like come to speed and get around the cars. So when it's years out, but when Caltrans does the work, they're going to continue that travel lane from Lark Avenue to Highway 9. That way, the backup will start a little further along. Once people get to Highway 9, they're not going to get off. The other thing that'll help with is when they rebuild the Highway 917 interchange, that's kind of a terrible road to walk on right now. There'll be sidewalks, there'll be bike lanes, the ramps will be changed so you're not coming in on an angle looking over your shoulder. It'll be a regular straight on intersection. So there's a lot of improvements coming there. And then very specifically, one change that was made last year, maybe the year before that, that was sort of to help us with the mapping apps, is throughout the entire Almond Grove, if people come out to Santa Cruz Avenue, so there's Almendra, there's Bachman, there's Nicholson, there's Bean, Main Street, and then my own street of Broadway, except for Main Street, they all say no right turn on Saturdays between, I think, 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. And Main Street. So basically, those signs were put up. No police officer is going to sit there and give tickets, but what it does is because we have those signs up, it goes into those mapping apps. So anybody who puts into Apple Maps or Google Maps or Waze, because those apps know that that right turn is illegal on Saturdays, they will not send anybody off into the neighborhoods. And that actually has been really effective. And the way I know it's effective is because when traffic gets bad on a Sunday, all heck breaks loose in the Almond Grove, but it is fine on Saturdays. And I think that was a good test. And you know, the real reality is that beach traffic exists on very hot Saturdays, almost always Saturdays. For whatever reason, if people are going to go to the beach, they usually go on Saturday, not Sunday. It's on the hottest days, usually between Memorial Day and Labor Day. And one summer when we had a lot of beach traffic, Parks and Public Works actually did counts of the hours of the gridlock. And it was 23 hours over the whole summer. And I'm not saying that during those times, it's not horribly painful, but there's only so many resources we can pour in. It's a pretty intractable problem. We can try to make it better, but there's only so much money you want to put into something that affects us for 23 hours out of the entire year, to put it in perspective. And I know sitting on my, you're in the Almond Grove, I'm on Broadway, on the days when it's really bad and I can hear the cars all stopping in front of my house, I don't get mad, I get zen. I sit on the front lawn. I feel bad for everyone stuck in their cars. I can't believe they thought this was a shortcut. But the reality is, within an hour, they're gone. So at that time, it's horrible. But I know I'm not going to go to the grocery store on Saturday after 11 in the morning. I've done it once or twice. I've gotten to Lunardi's and all of a sudden I can't get home. So planning around that helps. And if it's a cool day, there's really not going to be beach traffic. So feel free to come downtown, except for those like 4 or 5 really horrible Saturdays a year. And it'll be fine.
And we can't go anywhere on a Saturday because we can't get home.
I was going to say, we can go anywhere on a Saturday. We just can't come home. Yeah.
Well, we saw that we have a highly knowledgeable 2 people, mayor and vice mayor, that are working for us. And I don't believe that you get very high pay for that, if I remember correctly.
I think we get $570 a month before taxes. We're clearly not in it for the money only.
Yeah, so that is one kind of bargain that we definitely had. And I appreciate all of you coming out. I'm sure they'll stay for a little while if you have extra questions. I know there are a lot more traffic kinds of things that people are concerned about, but we were just so fortunate to have them come. So thank you very much.
And thank you for having us. And I really want to thank the town manager for coming. Between the 2 of us, I guess we didn't need too much help, but you never know. So thank you to Laurel Pervetti for coming also.
And Miriam, if I could, I'll leave you with some information because I was thinking, I don't know. I think a lot of people in the terraces get out into town, but if you're not a regular user of the Los Gatos library, I live near it and I go there, but during the pandemic, they've also added more services. And so there's things at the library that are just amazing. They do tech tutoring. So if anybody wants to come into the library and learn how to do more with an iPad or your computer, free tutoring for all ages. There's a history room with a history collection. The library has speakers and education classes. There's book clubs. So I was looking it up. There's a book club that's done by Zoom. There's another book club that's done in person at the library. And they even have book discussion kits that you can take out from the library. So you can take out a set of 8 books and a group of questions and borrow it for 6 or 8 weeks and have your own book discussion with their books. They lend jigsaw puzzles. That's one of my favorite things. And I noticed some jigsaws out there. But if you're getting tired of the jigsaw puzzles you've got, you can borrow a new jigsaw puzzle from the library. They have retro tech. And I personally took advantage of this. You can bring in, as they call it, 20th century media. So I had a VHS tape of my son from when he was young. I brought it in and for free. The library has a grant that pays for this. They transferred it to digital media. So you can get photographs, you can get old audio or videotapes put onto digital to store them, or if you want to share them with other people. So it's a way to preserve memories. There's also a library seed share. When I got a tour of the library, I didn't know about that. And so people are encouraged to plant something, grow it, save some seeds, bring those seeds in and get new seeds. So it's a whole seed library going on with the community. And then this Thursday night, there's going to be poetry contest winners who will be reading their winning poetry. We have a poet laureate and she's holding that event. The other thing I wanted to bring up is our museum, the New Mu. I don't know if anyone's been to New Mu. It's New Museum. Great. So through a grant, well, okay, so now the town has paid a grant all Los Gatos residents have free entry. So you can visit the museum anytime that it's open for free. And right now, I saw the exhibit they have there. It's called Art Now, and it's all of the high school art from the whole county. There's, I think, I'm going to forget now, 70 some pieces there with the award winners, and it's all different media, oil painting, sculpture, fabrics, all kinds of things. It's a fabulous display, but they have Jane Olin in the Company of Trees. They have a Los Gatos History Hall. And then coming in November, they have Reclamation, Art and Culture of the, I'm going to say it wrong, Muwekma Ohlone Tribal Council. And so going back to our roots, if you want to talk about Los Gatos history, it goes way back before the 1800s and to the first people that were living here. So it'll be a whole history exhibit of the indigenous people that lived here. The library, or the NUMU, is also putting together a digital archive. So in the past, at the old history museum and the art museum, there were a lot of items that couldn't be displayed. They are painstakingly taking each and every one of them and putting them on digitally. So I spent about 2 hours looking through that. You can see the item, there's photographs of it, a description of where it came from, what the size is, what the material is, what it was used for. That's just fascinating. Yeah, I need to spend more time looking at that. The NUMU will give guided tours. So if there were a group of people from the terraces that wanted to come and get a tour or see the exhibits, the museum will do that. And they have classes, talks, and new exhibits all the time. So I'm a huge booster of that museum. The town does give rent relief to them, and we've helped them out during the pandemic, and they're a real asset to the community. It's on Main Street. It's right next to the Civic Center. It's part of the old Civic Center. So where the Veterans Memorial is, past the high school on Main Street. So if you pass the high school on your right, it's on the left. There's a big, huge lawn, and the museum is in there. The History Club or the History. Yeah, that's the History Club. They have some historical items there, but you need to keep coming further into town and get to NUMU and check it out.
We need to tell Dana to get a bus right for us.
Yes.
We have a transportation problem because a lot of people here don't drive. So if our bus takes a crew, fine. The recreation department came here and shared all that stuff with us. But getting there.
Right, the transport to get there. Okay, well, we'll have to figure that out because it's something you need to get to. And
I have a
oh,
police question.
okay.
You want to take it?
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not going to shout anymore. We have a noise problem with cars. This part of Blossom Hill Road, between this light and that light, is a racetrack. And
Oh, Blossom Hill Road.
no, yeah, right here. And there's a school. And there's
Thank you for going around. That was very helpful.
sign that blinks. and
Some
no
people have loud voices, but then there are others.
Yeah. Well, this room is set up so that what you go through here, it adds speakers into people's ears.
Yeah. Well, that was very nice.
So you, hour and a half, wow.
Yeah.
Busy.
I hope people are not unhappy about that.
Oh, no, I thought it was terrific.
Well, hi, thank you for coming. Yes, it's been quite interesting.
The best way for us to deal with that is to make the whole road go slower. I mean, it started with some end down here where that hill, we have, I think, some other, we call them reform projects coming along the hill, that can help slow that down. We can certainly send the police around, but they can't stand there all the time. We've got many other places.
It happens in the morning when the nincompoops are going to school or maybe a job. It happens in the evening, starting around 3:30.
Because, you know, they do, I had to sometimes when I try to place books. You don't necessarily want them really kind of like. You're one where it's kind of a collection. I know. And if they already have what they like. Okay, okay, well then 75% of the cars.
Oh, yeah, it's okay. I'm gonna go turn it off and turn everything off and then once everyone leaves.
Okay, you can take care of that.
Yeah, yeah. So you don't have to worry about it. You can just leave. I was just gonna go in a few minutes once everyone's gone.
Yeah, I was hoping we'd have Zoom and we didn't have that.
Are you sure? Because they told me to turn off Zoom.
Well, we advertised it.
I think it did play. I think it was just an AV room because they told me to turn it off as if it was still going.
I think they did have Zoom.
So yeah.
Because I didn't see the thing sitting there.
Oh, it was in the room, in the other room.
I don't think that was, it's all magic.
Yeah.
Right, well, the library, the other thing is, I still have the chocolate club, and they would have to place those beautiful chess sets, and I don't know. Okay, so I will ask around and see if I can find any other thing. Like my card.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
Okay, so. Okay, okay, that would be great. Yes. It's kind of hard though. I mean, I try not to be attached to them. So if they drop the bill, I want to make sure that they. See what I can do to find a good place to work.
Hi, thank you. Everything's fantastic. Thank you. You have a nice day.
Oh, right. You know what? Let me give you more information. And I'll email it to you. So with the address. I think I. Oh, and it's from. I have your email. Right, because we were corresponding getting this set up. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, let me do that. Because then I can get more useful information to you. This is really nice. Okay, because that would be great. You know, the Chamber of Commerce, I look after some of the Chamber of Commerce. You know, they put on something called Leadership Los Gatos. And I took that in 2014. And part of that class involved getting a band. They don't get the band.
Hi. Oh, it's the front desk over there. Yeah, sure. Okay, yeah. So is she going to share with you afterwards or? Okay. I understand.
Yeah, it's an emergency.
Yes.
And she comes and visits me.
Okay, is she leaving?
Stays, but she's not staying.
Okay, got it. She's not staying today. Okay, yeah, then she could just sleep right after then. You can enjoy your dinner in peace. Yes.
That's a good question. What are your particular interests? I mean, would you want it to be art or services? I'll be back soon.
Okay. No, you don't. You're free to go. Thank you.
And they gave a presentation of the and they provide supplemental food, rent, health products in their houses. I mean, they're just amazing. And we talked about a lot. About 60%. I think they mostly work with grants and our town is giving them extra money during the pandemic. I think so. That's the first one I can think of. There's probably quite a few. I don't know, but yeah, they are a nonprofit. They've been around for a while. They would be as much as you said. They've been around for 10 years. Look at the history. I think so. Supported by them. So I can look more into that. I mean, it's just one idea. I could throw a couple ideas out. Right, this is something you would say.
Hi, hello.
Oh, no, I don't even mean that. I just. Or, you know, like, you know, I would probably. Well, why would you? Like, why would you? Yes. They serve. One of my neighbors here has a video. They're engaged. They help. They have volunteers to help. Also go on the I agree. I like to get locally. I also feel like there's
No, it's all right. I understand completely. Sometimes it just, you have to go now. Have a nice day.
They were, and I could tell there were a lot of questions that people still wanted. You know what? I didn't give you, I was going to give you a bunch of my cards in case people wanted them. to email or contact you, do you want,
Oh, hi, everyone. How are you?
oh, good. Okay, that's just I'd like to find out. Oh, right.
Hi.
Hello. So what do I have to do to leave?
Oh, just leave.
Oh, okay, I don't have
No,
to sign out or anything.
No, you don't.
Got
Want me
a
to throw
good
that away?
turnout. Good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marion.
Hi, hello.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye. Hello.